My hands were shaking as I stood outside the glass doors of Morrison and Fletcher Architecture. It was my first day as a junior designer, and I was 26 years old with a portfolio full of dreams and a student loan debt that kept me awake at night. I had no idea that walking through those doors would change everything. The reception area was all clean lines and natural light. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes directed me to the 11th floor. "You're lucky. She doesn't usually take on junior designers directly." The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened, I stepped into an open-plan office with floor-to ceiling windows overlooking the city, and that's when I saw her. Victoria Fletcher stood at a drafting table, her dark hair pulled back in a loose bun, wearing tailored black pants and a white silk blouse. She was pointing at something on a blueprint, speaking to two other designers with an intensity that made the air around her seem charged. She was probably in her early 40s, and she was the most striking woman I'd ever seen. "You must be Maya Chen." Her voice pulled me from my thoughts. She was standing right in front of me now, extending her hand. Her eyes were gray-blue, like storm clouds over the ocean. "Yes, Ms. Fletcher. Thank you for this opportunity." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Call me Victoria." Her handshake was firm and warm. "Let me show you to your desk." Working for Victoria was like being swept up in a hurricane of creativity and precision. She was demanding, but never cruel, expecting excellence because she knew we were capable of it. She'd stay late reviewing our work, always finding something to improve, but also highlighting what we did well. I found myself staying late too. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted to learn everything she could teach me. I wanted to see that small smile when I got something right. I wanted to hear her say, "Good work, Maya." But it was more than professional admiration, and I knew it. I noticed the way she touched her neck when she was thinking, the way she drank her coffee, black with just a whisper of sugar, the way her entire face changed when she laughed, which wasn't often enough. The small scar above her left eyebrow that I desperately wanted to know the story behind. I was falling for my boss, and it was the most terrifying and exhilarating feeling I'd ever experienced. One evening, 3 months into the job, we were the only ones left in the office. I was working on a residential project, trying to balance the client's desire for modern aesthetics with the historical integrity of the building. "You're overthinking it." Victoria's voice came from behind me. I hadn't heard her approach. She leaned over my shoulder, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "Look here, if you adjust the roofline just slightly, you maintain the historical silhouette while creating the clean lines the client wants." Her hand moved over my sketch, and I held my breath. "See?" She straightened up, but her hand briefly touched my shoulder. "Trust your instincts, Maya. They're good." I turned to thank her and found her looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The moment stretched between us, charged with something unspoken. Then her phone rang, shattering the spell. She stepped away to answer it, and I released the breath I'd been holding. The project that changed everything was the Riverside Cultural Center. It was the biggest commission the firm had landed in years, and Victoria chose me to be part of the core design team. Just me and 2 senior architects working directly with her. We spent long hours together. Late nights turned into early mornings. Coffee runs became our ritual. We started sharing more than just small pieces of ourselves, slipping through in exhausted conversations. She told me about growing up in Boston, the daughter of a construction worker who taught her to see the poetry in buildings. I told her about my parents' restaurant in San Francisco, how I grew up sketching on napkins between serving tables. She asked me one night around midnight when we were both too tired to maintain professional distance, "Because buildings outlive us," I said. "They're proof we were here, that we made something beautiful." She looked at me for a long moment. "That's exactly why I do it too." The attraction was becoming impossible to ignore. I'd catch her looking at me and she'd quickly look away. Our hands would brush when passing documents, and the contact felt electric. Once, when I was reaching for a book on a high shelf, she came up behind me to help, her body close to mine, and we both froze for a heartbeat too long. I knew it was wrong. She was my boss. There were power dynamics, professional ethics, risks to both our careers. But when I lay awake at night, I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking about the way her eyes crinkled when she really smiled, the sound of her laugh, the gentleness in her hands when she corrected my sketches. I was thinking about how much I wanted to kiss her. 6 months into working together, we had to present the preliminary Riverside Cultural Center designs at a conference in Seattle. Just the 2 of us would go. The senior architects would hold down the office. The firm booked us separate rooms, which somehow made it feel less inappropriate and more like a regular business trip. The presentation went perfectly. Victoria was brilliant, commanding the room with her vision for how the center would serve the community while pushing architectural boundaries. I supported her with the technical details, and we moved together like we'd been doing this for years instead of months. Afterward, at the hotel bar, we celebrated with cocktails. Victoria was more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. The professional armor lowered just a bit. "You were amazing today," she said, her fingers playing with the stem of her martini glass. "You have a gift for making complex ideas accessible." "You could have," I said, "but I'm glad you didn't have to." She looked at me over the rim of her glass, and something in her eyes made my heart race. "Maya, I need to tell you something." My mouth went dry. "Okay," she opened her mouth, then closed it. "Never mind, it's not appropriate. Victoria, we should get some rest. Early flight tomorrow." She stood abruptly, leaving money on the bar. "Good night, Maya." I watched her walk away, and I felt something breaking in my chest. After Seattle, something shifted. Victoria became more distant, more strictly professional. She stopped staying late when I was there. She kept conversations focused solely on work. The warmth that had been building between us was replaced by a careful coldness that hurt more than I wanted to admit. I threw myself into work, trying to pretend it didn't matter, trying to convince myself that what I'd felt, what I'd thought we both felt, was just my imagination. But then came the night that changed everything. It was pouring rain, the kind of storm that turned city streets into rivers. I'd stayed late to finish some revisions, and when I finally packed up around 10, I realized I'd left my umbrella at home. I stood at the building entrance, psyching myself up to run for the subway, when Victoria appeared beside me. "You'll get soaked." She had her umbrella, a large black one. She looked at me, and there was something raw in her expression. "Please, let me give you a ride." Her car was parked in the underground garage. We didn't speak in the elevator, the silence heavy with everything we weren't saying. The garage was dimly lit and nearly empty. We got to her car, a sleek silver sedan. She unlocked it but didn't open the door. Instead, she turned to me. "I can't keep doing this," she said quietly. My heart stopped. "Doing what?" "Pretending I don't feel what I feel." Her eyes met mine, and I saw everything I'd been hoping for reflected back at me. "Pretending I don't think about you constantly, that I don't look for you first thing every morning, that being near you doesn't make it hard to breathe." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. "I'm your boss," she continued, her voice breaking slightly. "This is wrong on every level." "But Maya," I kissed her. I closed the distance between us and pressed my lips to hers, and the world fell away. She made a small sound of surprise, then her arms were around me, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, desperate and hungry. Months of restrained desire finally unleashed. We broke apart, both breathing hard. Her forehead rested against mine. Her bedroom was like her elegant, minimalist, beautiful. She was still asleep beside me, her face peaceful in a way I'd never seen at the office. Last night had been incredible. Not just the physical connection, though that had been amazing, but the emotional intimacy. The way she'd held me afterward, the quiet conversations in the dark, the feeling of finally being exactly where I belonged. But in the morning light, reality began to seep in. What had we done? Victoria stirred, her eyes opening. When she saw me, she smiled, a real, unguarded smile that made my heart ache. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." She reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," I said, and I meant it. "Are you?" Her smile faded slightly. "I don't know. This is complicated, Maya, I know. If anyone at the firm finds out, they won't," I said. "We'll be careful." "I know. If anyone at the firm finds out, they won't," I said. "We'll be careful." She sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "It's not just about being careful. There are ethical implications. Power dynamics. Your career is mine to risk," I said firmly. "Victoria, I'm not some kid who doesn't understand the situation. I'm 26 years old and I know exactly what I'm doing. What I want. What do you want?" "You," I said simply. "I want you." She pulled me into a kiss, soft and sweet. When we broke apart, she said, "We need rules. Boundaries at work. No preferential treatment, in fact. I might have to be harder on you to avoid suspicion. And we keep this completely private until we figure out how to handle it properly." "Okay," I agreed. We both knew it wasn't going to be that simple for the next 3 months. Victoria was my boss, demanding and exacting. I was her junior designer, talented but still learning. We maintained appropriate distance, spoke in measured tones. Never let a lingering glance give us away. But outside the office, we were something else entirely. We couldn't get enough of each other. Stolen moments at her apartment, weekend trips to coastal towns where no one knew us, quiet dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants far from anyone we might know. We talked for hours about everything: our dreams, our fears, our pasts. She told me about her ex-wife, Catherine, who she'd divorced 3 years ago. We married too young, Victoria said. We wanted different things. She wanted children and a house in the suburbs. I wanted to build a legacy in architecture. We loved each other, but we couldn't make each other happy. I told her about my own journey coming out. The struggle with my traditional parents, the eventual acceptance that came with time and patience. They came around, I said. When they saw I was happy, really happy, they couldn't hold on to their prejudices. Are you happy? Victoria asked, running her fingers through my hair as we lay in bed one Sunday morning. With me. Deliriously, I said, and I was, but the secrecy was harder than I'd expected. I couldn't tell my friends where I was going on weekends. Couldn't post photos on social media. Couldn't talk about the person who made me happier than I'd ever been and at work. Watching Victoria praise another designer's work or assign a choice project to someone else, knowing she was doing it to avoid suspicion stung, even though I understood why. I hate this. I told her one night after a particularly frustrating day. I hate pretending you don't mean everything to me. I know, she said, holding me close, but we have to be smart about this. If we go public now, there will be accusations of favoritism, ethics violations. You could lose your job. I could lose my reputation. So what do? We wait, she said. You build your career, establish yourself. Then, when you're on solid ground, we can figure out how to be together openly. It made sense logically, but my heart wanted more. The cracks started to show during a business trip to Austin. Victoria and I went to meet with potential clients for a major mixed-use development project. We kept separate hotel rooms and maintained professional distance in all public interactions. But on the second night, after a successful client dinner, Victoria came to my room. I couldn't stay away, she said, and there was something desperate in her voice. We made love with an urgency that felt different, almost frantic. Afterward, she held me tightly, her face buried in my neck. What's wrong? I asked that. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm 42, Maya, you're 27, I'm your boss. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being incredibly selfish, keeping you in this situation. You're not keeping me anywhere, I said. I'm choosing this. Choosing you, but what about your career? What about Victoria? I made her look at me. Do you love me? She'd never said it. We'd been together for 3 months, but those words had remained unspoken. Her eyes filled with tears. Yes, God, yes. I love you so much, it terrifies me. Then that's all that matters, I said. We'll figure out the rest. She kissed me, and I tasted salt on her lips. When we returned from Austin, Victoria hired a new executive assistant named Melissa. She was efficient, organized, and extremely protective of Victoria's time and privacy. She was also immediately suspicious of me. The way she'd find reasons to interrupt our meetings, the small comments about how much time Victoria spent mentoring me specifically. I don't like her, I told Victoria one evening at her apartment. Melissa. Victoria laughed, pulling me onto the couch beside her. You're being paranoid. Maybe I was, but something about the way Melissa looked at me made me uneasy. 2 weeks later, I was working late alone in the office hour, so I thought I'd sent Victoria a text. Missing you. Can't wait for this weekend. Not explicitly romantic, but anyone reading between the lines would know. As I was leaving, I passed by Victoria's office. The light was on. Through the glass wall, I saw Melissa at Victoria's desk, looking at Victoria's phone. My phone. Our messages. My blood ran cold. I must have made a sound because Melissa's head snapped up. Our eyes met through the glass. She smiled, a cold, calculating smile, and carefully put Victoria's phone back down. I walked away, my heart pounding. I needed to tell Victoria. But tell her what? That I saw her assistant looking at her phone. That I had a bad feeling. I called her as soon as I was outside. Maya, what's wrong? We need to talk now. Can I come over? Of course. I'm home. What happened? When I got to her apartment and told her what I'd seen, she went pale. She was looking at my phone. I'm not 100% certain, but I never gave her my passcode. Victoria paced her living room. But it would be easy enough to see me enter it, and I leave my phone on my desk sometimes. What do? She stopped pacing, her face hardening into the determined expression I recognized from high-stakes meetings. We handle it. Tomorrow, I'll change my I'll also have a conversation with HR about privacy policies. But we can't accuse her without proof. And if she already knows, if she tells people, Victoria came to me, taking my hands. Then we'll deal with it together. But I could see the fear in her eyes that matched my own. Melissa made her move 2 days later. She requested a private meeting with Victoria. I happened to be in the hallway outside Victoria's office when Melissa arrived. Through the glass walls, I watched their conversation grow heated. Then Victoria's face went absolutely white. The meeting ended abruptly. Melissa left that same cold smile on her face. Victoria sat at her desk, her head in her hands. I waited 5 minutes, then went to her office with a folder of drawings as an excuse. "Victoria," I said from the doorway, "are you okay?" She looked up, and I'd never seen her look so shattered. "Close the door." I did, my stomach dropping. "She knows," Victoria said flatly. "She saw our messages, and she's threatening to go to HR with allegations of an inappropriate relationship and favoritism unless she stopped. Unable to continue. Unless what? Unless I make her a junior partner and give her lead on the Riverside project." I felt sick. "She's blackmailing you." "Yes, we can't let her do this. We go to HR ourselves," we explained Maya. "Think about what you're saying. Even if we're honest about the relationship, the optics are terrible. You're my direct report. I've given you significant opportunities. Even if there's been no actual favoritism, it will look like there has been. Your reputation will be destroyed. Every accomplishment you've earned will be questioned." "I don't care about that." "Well, I do." She stood, her voice rising. "I care about your career, your future. I won't let you throw it away from me. So what? You give in to her demands." She pressed her palms against her temples. "I need to think." "We could go public ourselves," I said. "Take away her leverage, and then what?" "Maya, be realistic. I could lose my position in the firm. You could be fired. And Melissa still wins because she's torn us apart." The truth of her words hit me like a physical blow. Victoria came around her desk, taking my hands. "I love you. More than I thought I could love anyone. But I need to protect you, even if that means don't," I said, tears streaming down my face. "Don't you dare say we should end this." "Maya, no. We find another way. We fight this together." And we held each other while the walls we'd built around our secret relationship began to crumble. Chapter 11. The investigation that night. At Victoria's apartment, we made a plan. "We need proof of blackmail," I said. "If we can prove she's extorting you, we flip the script. She's the one who'll be fired." "She's too smart to put anything in writing," Victoria said. "Then we get her to say it out loud. Record it." Victoria looked uncertain. "That could be seen as entrapment, or as protecting yourself." I pulled out my phone. "The meeting is in 3 days, right? When she expects your answer?" "Yes." "Then we have 3 days to figure this out." We spent those days carefully planning. Victoria consulted with an employment lawyer friend without giving specific details. I researched recording laws in our state. We prepared for every contingency we could think of. The night before the meeting, I stayed at Victoria's. We barely slept, holding each other in the darkness. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Victoria whispered, "I want you to know that these months with you have been the happiest of my life." "This isn't over," I said fiercely. "We're not giving up." The next morning, Victoria went to the office early. The plan was for her to have the meeting with Melissa with her phone recording in her desk drawer. If Melissa explicitly stated her blackmail demands, we'd have proof. I waited in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for Victoria's text. It came at 10:47 a.m. "Come now. Bring your things. All of them." My hands shook as I read it. That wasn't the signal we'd agreed on. Something had gone wrong. I ran the 3 blocks to the office. I burst through the doors of Morrison and Fletcher to find chaos. 2 security guards stood in the lobby. The receptionist looked at me with pity. "Maya, I think you should just leave." "Where's Victoria?" "In the conference room with Mr. Morrison," and I didn't wait to hear the rest. I ran for the elevators, the security guards calling after me. When I got to the 11th floor, I could see through the glass conference room walls. Victoria was there, along with Richard Morrison, the firm's founder and other named partner. Melissa stood nearby with a triumphant smile. And there were other people I didn't recognize. Our representatives, probably. On the conference table were papers, printed photos. I couldn't see clearly, but my stomach twisted. Victoria saw me through the glass. She shook her head, slightly a warning, but I was already pushing open the door. "Maya, don't," Victoria started. "Ms. Chen," Richard Morrison said gravely, "this doesn't concern you." "It does if it's about me and Victoria." Melissa's smile widened. "Oh, it's about much more than that." She slid some of the photos across the table toward me. My knees nearly gave out. They were photos of Victoria with another woman, intimate photos, kissing, embracing. The woman wasn't me. The photos weren't recent, judging by Victoria's shorter haircut and the fashion, but they existed. They were real. "Where did you get these?" Victoria's voice was deadly quiet. "Does it matter?" Melissa said. "The point is, you've been lying. About your sexuality? About your relationship with Ms. Chen, and as these photos show, you have a history of inappropriate relationships in professional settings. That woman was your intern, wasn't she? 7 years ago?" Victoria's face went ashen. She looked at me and I saw shame and fear in her eyes. That's not it. Wasn't like that, Victoria said. Wasn't it? Richard Morrison looked disappointed and angry. Victoria, I've known you for 15 years. I've trusted you with this firm's reputation. And now I find out you've been involved with a subordinate? Maya and I, are you about to tell me you're in love? Melissa interrupted mockingly. That this is different. That's what you said about Charlotte too, wasn't it? Charlotte. So that was the woman in the photos. I felt like I was drowning. Victoria stood, her hands flat on the conference table. When she spoke, her voice was strong and clear. Yes, I'm in love with Maya. And yes, 7 years ago, I had a relationship with Charlotte Hayes, who was an intern at my previous firm. But there are crucial differences that these photos and Ms. Reed's narrative deliberately obscure. She looked at Richard Morrison directly. Charlotte and I didn't begin our relationship until after her internship ended. We dated for 2 years. We broke up amicably when she moved to London for a graduate program. We're still friends. I'll happily provide her contact information so she can confirm that. I never abused my position or gave her preferential treatment during her internship. Then she turned to me. Maya, I should have told you about Charlotte, about that part of my past. I was afraid you'd think I had a pattern of this. Afraid you wouldn't believe that what we have is different. Is it different? I asked quietly. Yes. She held my gaze. With Charlotte, I waited until it was appropriate. With you, I didn't. I couldn't. Because what I feel for you is so much bigger than anything I've felt before. It made me reckless. It made me risk everything I'd built, everything I valued, because being without you felt impossible. How touching, Melissa said. But it doesn't change the ethics violation. No, Victoria agreed. It doesn't. Mr. Morrison, I've broken company policy by becoming involved with a direct report. I take full responsibility for that. But what Ms. Reed is doing right now is blackmail. That's a crime. That's a lie, Melissa said quickly. Is it? Victoria pulled out her phone. Because I recorded our conversation 2 days ago. The one where you made those exact demands? Melissa's face went white. Richard Morrison held out his hand. Let me hear it. We all listened to the recording. Melissa's voice came through clearly. Make me junior partner and give me the Riverside lead, or everyone learns about your little affair with Maya, your choice. When it ended, Richard looked at Melissa with disgust. You're fired. Security will escort you out, and you should know that we'll be consulting with our attorneys about possible criminal charges. Melissa opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her bag and left, her heels clicking angrily on the floor. When she was gone, Richard turned to Victoria and me. You're right that you've violated company policy, he said. The question is what to do about it. Richard Morrison looked between Victoria and me. His expression softened. Victoria, you've been with this firm for 12 years. You're one of our most talented architects and a named partner. But you've created a situation that could expose us to liability and damage our reputation. I know, Victoria said. But you've also participated in an inappropriate relationship with your direct supervisor. I nodded, unable to speak. Richard sighed. Here's what's going to happen. Victoria, you'll receive a formal reprimand in your file. Maya, you'll be transferred to report to one of our other partners immediately. You'll both be required to attend ethics training. And Victoria, you'll be recusing yourself from any decisions about Maya's assignments, compensation, or advancement for the foreseeable future. That's it. I couldn't believe it was so lenient. That's not nothing, Richard said. Victoria's reputation will take a hit. There will be gossip. Some clients may question her judgment. And Maya, you'll have to prove yourself without Victoria's direct mentorship. He looked at Victoria. I'm disappointed. Not because you're in a relationship with another woman. My own daughter is gay. For God's sake. I'm disappointed because you're smarter than this. You know, the rules exist for good reasons. I do, Victoria said. And I apologize for putting the firm in this position. As for whether you two continue this relationship, that's your business now. That Maya's not your direct report. But I strongly suggest you both think carefully about whether it's worth what it will cost you. After Richard left, Victoria and I stood in the conference room, the photos of her and Charlotte still scattered on the table. I need to know, I said. About Charlotte? About everything. Come to my office, Victoria said. In Victoria's office, with the door closed, she told me everything. I was 35 when I met Charlotte. She was 23, a graduate student doing a summer internship. She was brilliant, passionate about architecture. And yes, beautiful. But I never acted on any attraction while she was an intern. I made sure of that. When did it start? I asked. The day after her internship ended, she came to me and asked me out. She'd felt the same attraction I had. We dated for 2 years. It was good, mostly. But ultimately, we wanted different things from life. She wanted to study in Europe. I had just started this firm and couldn't leave. We ended things amicably. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid you'd see me as someone who had a pattern, someone who preyed on younger women she had power over, and I knew that's exactly what people would think when they found out about us. Is that what you are? I had to ask, even though it hurt. She looked at me with such pain in her eyes. Do you think that's what I am? I thought about the past months, the way Victoria had initially tried to keep distance between us, the way she'd agonized over the ethics, the way she'd been willing to sacrifice the relationship to protect my career. No, I said, I don't. I think you're someone who fell in love twice with women who happened to be younger and in your field. That doesn't make you a predator. It makes you someone who connected with people who shared your passion. She closed her eyes, relief flooding her face. I love you, Maya, so much. I love you too. I moved around the desk and she stood to meet me. We held each other for a long moment. What do we do now? I asked. Now? She pulled back to look at me. Now we deal with the consequences. Together. The next few weeks were brutal. The gossip spread through the office like wildfire. People whispered when I walked by. Some were supportive, but others looked at me with contempt or pity. My new supervisor, David Marsh, was fair but distant, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Worse was the questioning of my work. Every project I'd been assigned under Victoria was scrutinized. Had I really earned those opportunities? Or had they been gifts from a besotted boss? It didn't matter that my work was good. It didn't matter that other designers confirmed Victoria had never shown me inappropriate favoritism. The doubt was there, a stain on everything I'd accomplished. Victoria had it worse. Clients questioned her judgment. Some projects were reassigned to other architects. She faced several difficult conversations with the board. Her ex-wife, Catherine, even called, worried about how the scandal might affect her own reputation by association. Through it all, Victoria remained composed, apologizing when appropriate, defending herself when necessary, and continuing to produce excellent work. We couldn't see each other at the office anymore, not even for casual conversation. Every interaction had to be witnessed, documented, appropriate. But outside work, we were together. My apartment or hers, every evening we could manage. We clung to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. I'm so sorry, Victoria said one night, after a particularly hard day where a client had requested I be removed from their project. This is my fault. I should have been stronger. Stop, I said. This is our choice. Yes, it's hard. But Victoria, I don't regret it. Not for a second. Even when it's costing you your reputation. Even then, I took her face in my hands. You're worth it. She kissed me, desperate and grateful. 3 months after the scandal broke, I got a call from Jennifer Walsh, a prominent architect in Chicago. Maya, I've been following your work, she said. The Riverside Cultural Center designs that were published last month were extraordinary. I'm starting a new firm focused on sustainable urban design, and I want you to be part of my founding team, not as a junior designer, as a full associate. My heart raced. That's an incredible offer. It would mean relocating to Chicago. I know that's a big ask, but this is a ground floor opportunity to build something from scratch. And frankly, I think you need a fresh start somewhere. Your talents will be recognized without ... baggage. She was right. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to step out of Victoria's shadow and prove myself on my own terms. It also meant leaving Victoria that evening. I told her about the offer at her apartment. We were in her kitchen and she was making dinner, or trying to, though her hands were shaking as she chopped vegetables. You have to take it, she said immediately. What? She put down the knife and turned to me. Maya, this is exactly what you need. A chance to build your career without everyone questioning whether you earned it. A chance to be seen for who you are, not as someone's girlfriend. But what about us? We'll figure it out. Chicago's not that far. We can visit, and in a few years, when you've established yourself, maybe her voice broke. Maybe you could come back, or I could move there, or you're crying, I said, moving to her. I'm trying to do what's best for you, even though it's killing me. I pulled her into my arms. What if what's best for me is being with you? Maya, I need time to think, I said. Jennifer gave me a week to decide. It was the longest week of my life. I called my best friend Sarah, who I'd been out to since college. I told her everything, the relationship, the scandal, the job offer. Wow, she said when I finished. That's a lot. I know. So what's your gut telling you? That I love her. That I don't want to leave her. But also that I need to prove myself. That if I stay, I'll always wonder if I could have made it on my own. Those things aren't mutually exclusive, Sarah said gently. You can take the job and keep the relationship. Long distance is hard, but not impossible. She's being all sacrificial about it. Of course she is. She loves you. She wants what's best for you. But Maya, here's the real question. If you don't take this job, will you resent her? I was quiet. Yeah, Sarah said. That's what I thought. And if you do take it and the relationship doesn't survive the distance, will you resent yourself for choosing your career? I don't know. Then you need to figure that out. But let me tell you something. You're 27 years old. You have time for both career and love. You don't have to choose one or the other permanently. You just have to choose what feels right for this moment in your life. After we hung up, I called my mother. We'd been close since I came out, closer than we'd been before. Tell me about Dad's restaurant, I said. You two worked together for 30 years. How did you do it? We had boundaries, Mom said. Your father was the chef. I handled the business side. We respected each other's domains, and we made time for our relationship outside of work. Date nights, vacations, time when we weren't boss and employee or partners, just husband and wife. But you were partners in every sense, I said. Yes. And Maya, it was hard sometimes. We fought about money, about staffing, about everything. But we loved the restaurant, and we loved each other. That was enough. What if Victoria and I can't make it work? Then you'll have loved someone deeply and tried your best. That's never wasted time. But darling, don't run away from love because you're afraid. That's the only decision you'll truly regret. 2 days before I had to give Jennifer my answer, Victoria asked me to come to her apartment. She said she had something to show me. When I arrived, she had her laptop open on the coffee table. On the screen was an email from Charlotte Hayes. I reached out to her, Victoria said. After everything that happened, I thought she should know, and I wanted to ask her something. What? Whether she'd be willing to talk to you? To tell you her side of the story. My throat tightened. Why? Because I want you to know the whole truth, not just my version. If you're going to make a decision about us, about your future, you deserve all the information. The email contained a Zoom link. Victoria had scheduled a call with Charlotte for that evening, with my permission, at 8 p.m. We sat on Victoria's couch, laptop between us. And called Charlotte. She appeared on screen, woman about my age, with warm brown eyes and a bright smile. She was in what looked like a London apartment, morning light streaming through her windows. Maya, she said warmly, it's nice to meet you, even under these circumstances. You too, I managed. For the next hour, Charlotte told her story. How she'd fallen for Victoria during her internship, but never acted on it, knowing it would be inappropriate. How she'd been the one to pursue Victoria after the internship ended. How their relationship had been genuine and good, if ultimately not meant to last. Victoria never took advantage of me, Charlotte said firmly. Never. If anything, she was almost too cautious, too worried about the optics. When we were together, she constantly encouraged me to pursue my own goals, even when they took me away from her. The photos, I said. Where did they come from? Charlotte's face darkened. My ex, Amanda? We dated after Victoria and I broke up. When Amanda and I split, she was bitter. She knew about Victoria and threatened to use those photos to hurt her. I thought she'd gotten over it, but apparently she sold them to your office assistant, Melissa, Victoria said. Yes. Amanda contacted me last month, bragging about it. I'm so sorry. I never thought she'd actually do it. It's not your fault, I said. We talked more about architecture, about London, about life. By the end, I understood why Victoria had loved her. Charlotte was genuine, kind, and clearly still cared about Victoria as a friend. After we said goodbye and ended the call, Victoria turned to me. Do you see now? What Charlotte and I had was real, but it was also a long time ago. She's moved on. But I wanted you to know that I'm capable of having a healthy relationship with someone despite a power imbalance. Charlotte never doubted herself because of me. I don't want you to either. I don't doubt myself because of you, I said. I doubt myself because of what everyone else thinks. Then stop caring what everyone else thinks, Victoria said. Trust yourself. Trust what you know to be true about your own abilities. The night before I had to give Jennifer my answer, the Riverside Cultural Center had its grand opening. It had taken a year to complete, but it was finally done on. It was breathtaking. Victoria and I attended separately, maintaining the professional distance we'd kept at work. But as I walked through the building, seeing our designs come to life, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment. The main atrium was stunning soaring ceilings, natural light flooding through carefully placed windows, sustainable materials that made the space feel warm and alive, the community theater, the art galleries, the classrooms, all of it worked together beautifully. During the ceremony, Victoria gave a speech. She thanked the team, the city, the community members who'd contributed ideas. And then she said something that made my breath catch. It's about listening to voices different from our own, learning from those who see the world differently, and being brave enough to try something new. This building exists because talented people came together and trusted each other. I'm grateful to everyone who made it possible. Her eyes met mine across the room, and I understood. She was talking about Usabat's trust, about collaboration, about bravery after the ceremony. I found myself on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the city. Victoria appeared beside me. "It's beautiful," I said. "It is. You should be proud. The terrace design was yours. Was it mine? Or will people always assume you gave it to me?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Does it matter what people assume if you know the truth?" I thought it did. But standing here, seeing this, I gestured to the terrace, the city beyond. "I know what I'm capable of. I know what I contributed. And that's enough. So you've made your decision." I turned to face her. "I'm taking the job in Chicago." Pain flashed across her face, but she nodded. "That's the right choice. But," I continued, "I want to try long distance. If you do, I want visits and phone calls and planning a future where we figure out how to be in the same city again. I want all of it, Victoria. The messy, complicated, difficult, all of it." Her eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. I love you. I love my career, and I refuse to believe I have to choose between them. So I'm choosing both." She kissed me right there on the rooftop terrace, with the city lights sparkling around us and our building standing testament to what we could create together. "Yes," she whispered against my lips. "God, yes." Chicago was everything I'd hoped it would be. Jennifer's firm was thriving, and I was leading projects, making decisions, building my own reputation. The work was challenging and fulfilling, and for the first time in my career, no one questioned whether I'd earned my place. The long distance was hard. Victoria and I saw each other twice a month, alternating cities. Careful planning. A lot of FaceTime calls. We missed each other constantly, but we also learned to communicate better, to appreciate the time we had, to build a relationship that wasn't just about being in the same room. "I miss you," Victoria said one night over video chat. She was in her apartment, and I was in mine, both of us having late dinners alone. "I miss you too. 14 days until you visit. I'm counting down." She smiled. "How was your day?" I told her about the community center I was designing, the challenges with the budget, the creative solutions I was finding. She told me about the new projects at Morrison and Fletcher, the young designer she was mentoring, carefully, appropriately this time. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Not just for the work, though, that's incredible, but for having the courage to choose yourself." "I didn't choose myself over you," I corrected. "I chose myself and you. There's a difference." "Yes," she agreed. "There is." A month later, Victoria had news. "Morrison's retiring in a year," she said during one of my visits to New York. "He's selling his shares in the firm." "What does that mean for you?" "It means I'll be the sole named partner. It means more control, more responsibility." She paused. "It also means I could open a second office. Somewhere like, say, Chicago." My heart stopped. "Are you serious?" "Jennifer and I have been talking quietly about the possibility of a collaboration between our firms. Nothing's decided, but Maya, it's possible. In a year, maybe less, we could be in the same city again." "You'd do that? Leave New York?" "I'd do that for us," she said simply. "I'd do that for the chance to build a life together, not just a long-distance relationship." I kissed her. Tasting salt and hope and future. 1 year after the Riverside Cultural Center opened, there was an anniversary celebration. The building had won several architectural awards and become a beloved community space. I flew in from Chicago for the event. Victoria and I arrived separately, as we still did for professional functions, but everyone knew we were together. It was no longer a scandal, just a fact. Some people still whispered, but most had moved on to other gossip. During the tour of the building, I overheard 2 young architecture students talking. "That's Maya Chen," one whispered. "She's the lead designer at Walsh Associates now. Only 28 and already running major projects." "I heard she used to work here," the other said. "Under Victoria Fletcher." "Yeah, and they're dating." People were weird about it at first, but Chun's work speaks for itself. "Have you seen the Chicago Riverfront project she just published? It's incredible." I smiled to myself. My work was speaking for itself. Finally, that evening at the private reception, Victoria found me on the same rooftop terrace where we'd made our choice a year ago. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I have news," she said, and her voice was shaking slightly. "The Chicago office is officially happening. We sign the lease next month. I'll be moving in 6 weeks." I threw my arms around her, not caring who saw. "Really? Really? We'll still need to be careful about professional boundaries. You work for Jennifer." "I work for Morrison and Fletcher, but we'll be in the same city. We'll have dinner together. We'll sleep in the same bed more than twice a month. We'll build a life," Victoria said. "A real one." She pulled something from her Paquita key. "I was thinking we could look for a place together. If you want to." "Is this are you asking me to move in with you?" "Yes, Maya Chen, will you build a home with me? Will you build a life with me?" I took the key. my hand trembling. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Our apartment in Chicago had a view of the river and a drafting table in the spare room, where we sometimes worked on competition entries together, carefully managing our professional boundaries. Victoria's Chicago office was thriving. Morrison and Fletcher Chicago focused on sustainable urban design, and Victoria had built a team of talented young architects. She was happy in a way I'd never seen her in New York, freer, more herself. I was a partner at Walsh Associates now, leading a team of my own. The work I'd done over the past 2 years had earned me recognition, awards, respect. No one questioned my abilities anymore. Our relationship was out in the open, ordinary, normal. We had date nights. We argued about whose turn it was to do laundry. We visited each other's offices and met for lunch. We were just two people who loved each other and happened to work in the same field. On a random Tuesday evening, while we were cooking dinner together, Victoria put down her wine glass and took my hand. Okay, you remember how you asked me once in the beginning if I loved you? Yes, I told you I did. That I loved you so much it terrified me. And that's still true. But Maya, I've realized something. I don't just love you. I want to marry you. I stared at her. Is this? She pulled out a small box from her pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple gold ring with a small diamond. Maya Chen, you are the most talented, brave, infuriating, wonderful person I've ever met. You make me want to be better. You make me believe in things I thought I'd given up on. Will you marry me? I was crying. Yes, God, yes. She slipped the ring on my finger, and we kissed in our kitchen, our lives tangled together in the best possible way. 6 months later, we got married in a small ceremony overlooking Lake Michigan. Charlotte flew in from London. My parents beamed in the front row next to Victoria's parents, who'd flown from Boston. Richard Morrison attended, which surprised me, and he pulled me aside before the ceremony. I misjudged the situation at first, he said. I thought you two were being reckless, foolish. But watching you both these past years, the way you've built your careers, maintained your integrity, supported each other, you've proven me wrong. I'm happy for you both. During the ceremony, Victoria and I read vows we'd written. Maya, Victoria said, her voice steady and sure, 2 years ago, you taught me that love doesn't require sacrifice, that we can be ourselves fully as architects, as professionals, as women who love each other without apologizing or compromising. You showed me that choosing love and choosing ourselves aren't opposing forces. I promise to spend my life building with you, yes, but also a life full of honesty, respect, and joy. When it was my turn, I looked at her through happy tears. Victoria, you saw something in me before I saw it in myself. Not just talent, but potential. Worth. You pushed me to be brave, to claim my place in this field, to trust myself. Yes, our beginning was complicated. Yes, people talked. Yes, we faced consequences. But I would do it all again in a heartbeat because it led to this, to us. Standing here, having built something beautiful together. I promise to keep building with you, in all the ways that matter. We kissed as our friends and family cheered, and I thought about that first day in the office. Seeing Victoria for the first time, I'd had no idea that woman would change my entire life. But she had. Not because she'd given me opportunities, though. She'd been a brilliant mentor. Not because she'd loved me, though that love had transformed me. But because she'd challenged me to be fully myself, to claim my own power, to refuse to choose between love and ambition. We'd built a life together, and it was beautiful. The honeymoon was supposed to be 2 weeks of relaxation in Barcelona, exploring Gaudi's architecture, eating tapas, and forgetting about work entirely. We made it 4 days before both of us were sketching building facades on napkins. We're hopeless, I said, laughing as Victoria drew the flowing lines of Casa Batlló while we sat at a cafe in the Gothic Quarter. We're passionate, she corrected, reaching across the table to take my hand. The wedding ring on her finger caught the afternoon sunlight. There's a difference. Mrs. Fletcher, I said, testing out her name. I'm keeping Fletcher professionally, she reminded me. You're keeping Chen. We discussed this. I know, but I like calling you Mrs. Fletcher in private. She smiled, that soft smile reserved only for me. Then Mrs. Chen, what shall we do with the rest of our afternoon? I was thinking we could go back to the hotel, I said, lowering my voice suggestively. Victoria's eyes darkened. I like the way you think. We barely made it through the hotel room door before we were kissing. Desperate and hungry despite having made love that morning, marriage hadn't dimmed the intensity between us. If anything, it had amplified it. There was a freedom now, a permanence that made every touch feel both urgent and eternal. Later, tangled in the sheets with the Barcelona sunset painting the room gold, Victoria traced patterns on my bare shoulder. I never thought I'd have this, she said quietly. A second chance at love. At marriage? At building a life with someone who truly understands me? Catherine didn't understand you. She understood parts of me, but she wanted me to be someone I wasn't, someone who worked less, who prioritized home over career, who wanted the traditional suburban life. With you, I don't have to choose. You understand that architecture isn't just what I do. It's who I am. Same, I said. It's one of the reasons I love you. You never asked me to be less ambitious, less driven. You encouraged it. Speaking of which, Victoria said, a mischievous glint in her eye, I brought the proposal for the Milan project. I thought maybe we could look at it together. I grabbed a pillow and hit her with it. No, absolutely not. We are on our honeymoon, she laughed, pulling me close. Okay. No work talk. For at least another 2 days. 2 days. I'm being generous. You know you'll want to discuss the waterfront project by then. She was right, and we both knew it. Returning to Chicago felt surreal. Our apartment, not just Victoria's or mine, but ours looked different somehow. More real, more permanent. The first Monday back at work was strange. We kissed goodbye at the door, then headed to our separate offices. Walsh Associates and Morrison and Fletcher Chicago were in different buildings, which helped maintain professional boundaries. But I missed her immediately around noon. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria, having lunch with a potential client. Missing you? Dinner at home tonight. I'll cook. I smiled and replied, you cooking is dangerous. Remember the smoke alarm incident? The pasta was black, Victoria. Fine, I'll order takeout. But I'm still calling it cooking that evening. Sitting on our couch with Thai takeout and wine felt like the most normal and extraordinary thing in the world. This was marriage. This was home. Jennifer asked me about the Dubai project today, I said, stealing a spring roll from Victoria's container. She wants me to lead it, Dubai. Victoria sat up straighter. That's huge, Maya. It's a career-defining project. It's also 3 months on-site. Maybe longer. The joy faded from Victoria's face. Oh, I told her I needed to discuss it with you first. With us being newlyweds and you have to take it, Victoria said immediately. Victoria, no. Listen, this is exactly the kind of opportunity you've been working toward. You can't pass it up because we just got married. We'll figure it out. We always do 3 months apart. We've done long distance before, and I can visit. It's just Dubai, not Mars. I searched her face. Are you sure? No, she admitted. I hate the idea of you being gone that long, but I hate the idea of you resenting me for holding you back even more. I kissed her, tasting pad thai and love. This is why I married you. Because I encourage you to leave me for months at a time. Because you love me enough to let me fly. 2 months into married life, Victoria came home with news that changed everything. I'm pregnant, she said. I dropped the wine glass I'd been holding. It shattered on the kitchen floor, red wine spreading like blood across the tiles. What? Kidding? Victoria's face broke into a huge grin. God, your face. I'm kidding, Maya. That's not funny. I grabbed a towel, my hands shaking as I cleaned up the wine. You nearly gave me a heart attack. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. She helped me clean up, still laughing. But I do have real news. Morrison and Fletcher is being approached by a developer about a massive project, a sustainable housing complex for 500 families. Mixed income green technology. Community spaces. It's the kind of project I've dreamed about my entire career. That's amazing. There's a catch. They want someone young and innovative to co-lead with me. Someone who understands both sustainable design and community needs. My heart started racing. Victoria, if you're about to suggest what I think, what if we pitched it as a collaboration? Morrison and Fletcher, Chicago and Walsh Associates working together. You and me co-leading. We can't work together directly. We agreed you wouldn't work under me. This is different. This is a partnership between 2 firms. Equal billing. You wouldn't report to me. You'd work alongside me. We'd both report to the developer. I thought about it. Jennifer would have to approve. I already talked to her. She's intrigued. She thinks it could be great publicity for Walsh Associates shows. We can handle major projects and the Dubai project. Victoria's face fell slightly. You'd have to turn it down. I know that's asking a lot. Let me think about it, I said that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Victoria slept beside me. Dubai was the safe choice, a prestigious project that would cement my reputation independent of Victoria. But the housing complex was the dream, a chance to make a real difference, to create homes for families, to build something that mattered, and to do it with the woman I loved. Chapter 4. The decision again. I called Jennifer the next morning before I could second-guess myself. I want the housing project, I said, not Dubai. There was a pause. Are you sure? Maya, Dubai is. But this housing complex, working with Morrison and Fletcher, It's the kind of project that changes lives, including mine. And it has nothing to do with working alongside your wife. I took a breath. It has everything to do with working alongside my wife. But Jennifer, Victoria, and I are going to be in the same field for our entire careers. We can either spend our lives carefully avoiding each other professionally, or we can find ways to collaborate that are ethical and beneficial to everyone. This project is the latter. The optics will be fine if we do exceptional work, which we will. I promise you, Jennifer. I wouldn't suggest this if I didn't believe we could pull it off. Another pause. Then, okay, let's do it. But Maya, the work has to be flawless. Not just good, because people will be watching. I know. It will be. That evening, I told Victoria my decision. She pulled me into her arms and I felt her trembling. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for taking this leap with me. We're building a life together, I said. That includes our work. The Aurora housing complex, as it was named, was ambitious to the point of seeming impossible. 500 units across 15 buildings, all designed to lead platinum standards. Community gardens, shared spaces, solar panels, rainwater collection, affordable units integrated seamlessly with market-rate ones. The budget was tight. The timeline was aggressive. The stakeholder groups were numerous and often contradictory in their demands. It was perfect. Victoria and I divided responsibilities carefully. She handled the overall vision and client relationships. I focused on the technical details and community engagement. We met daily to coordinate but made decisions independently within our domains. Jennifer, assigned to other Walsh Associates architects to work under my direction. Morrison and Fletcher contributed 3 from Victoria's team. We were careful never to be alone together during work hours, always having team members present. Victoria asked during one meeting, 2 months into the project, we're having issues with the slope on buildings, C and D, I said, pointing to the site map. But I think if we adjust the foundation elevation here and here, we can create natural flow without additional pumping systems. Show me. I walked her through my solution, aware of our teams watching us carefully. That's brilliant, Victoria said when I finished. Then, to the room, this is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. Maya, move forward with that design. Someone make sure the structural engineers see these modifications by end of day. Professional, appropriate. After the meeting, I returned to Walsh Associates' office. One of my team members, a young man named James, followed me. Maya, can I ask you something? Sure. How do you do it? Work with Victoria without it being weird. Everyone knows you're married, but in that meeting, it was like you were just colleagues. I considered his question. We are colleagues. But when we're working, the project comes first. Our personal relationship doesn't make the work less important, if anything. It makes it more important. We have to be better, more professional, more ethical than anyone else. Doesn't that feel restrictive? Sometimes, I admitted, but it also feels empowering. We're proving that women, that queer women specifically, can maintain professional standards while having personal relationships. We're showing that love doesn't diminish competence. James nodded slowly. That's pretty cool, actually. A community group opposed to the development showed up at a planning meeting with signs and angry speeches. This project will gentrify our neighborhood, a woman shouted. These affordable units won't be affordable to the people who actually live here now. Victoria remained calm, but I could see tension in her shoulders. We've set aside 40% of units for residents making below median income. 40% isn't enough. And what about the families who will be displaced during construction? Can I address that? Victoria nodded, stepping aside to let me speak. You're right, I said, and the room quieted. 40% might not be enough, and construction displacement is a real concern. So here's what I propose. We increase affordable units to 50%, and we create a guaranteed right of return policy for any families displaced. With rent-controlled rates for 5 years after they move back, Victoria's eyes widened. This wasn't something we'd discussed. It would significantly impact the budget and the developer's profits. Additionally, I continued, we commit to hiring local workers for construction and ongoing maintenance jobs. We create apprenticeship programs for neighborhood youth, and we establish a community advisory board that has input on design decisions. The room was silent. Then the woman who'd spoken first said, put it in writing and we'll consider supporting the project. Done, I said. After the meeting, Victoria pulled me aside. I know, I'm sorry, but it was the right thing to do. She studied my face, then smiled. Yes, it was. Now we just have to convince the developer not to kill us? That night, Victoria and I had our first real fight as a married couple. "You undermined me," she said, as soon as we got home. "In front of the entire community, you made promises I don't know if we can keep." "I made promises we have to keep if we want this project to actually serve the community it's supposed to help." "At what cost, Maya?" "If the developer walks away, the project dies. 500 families get zero housing instead of the 400 we could have served. 400 families, with 200 of them priced out of their own neighborhood in 10 years. That's not success, Victoria. That's gentrification with a green roof. So your solution is to tank the entire project with unrealistic demands. My solution is to build something that actually matters." We were shouting now, something we'd never done before. Victoria's face was flushed, her hands clenched into fists. "You don't think I want to build something that matters? Maya, I've dedicated my entire career to this. Then why are you fighting me on making it better? Because better is the enemy of done. Because in the real world, we have to make compromises. Because I've been doing this 20 years longer than you and I know what's actually possible." The words hung between us like poison. "There it is," I said quietly. "You think because you're older, because you've been an architect longer, that you know better than me." Victoria's face crumpled. "No, Maya, that's not what I meant, isn't it? You've been so careful not to say it, but you think it. The older, wiser architect and her young, idealistic wife who doesn't understand how the world works? That's not fair. Isn't it true?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Then sometimes I do think I have more experience, more perspective. But Maya, that doesn't mean I think I'm better than you. It means I'm scared you're going to get hurt. That you're going to pour your heart into something impossible and have it break you. So you want to protect me by making me compromise my values? I want to protect you by helping you pick battles you can actually win. What if I don't want to be protected?" I said. "What if I want to fight for what's right, even if I lose?" Victoria sank onto the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. "Then you fight, and I'll fight beside you. But don't ask me not to be afraid for you." I sat down beside her, the anger draining away. "I'm scared too. Scared I made promises I can't keep. Scared I've ruined everything." She took my hand. "You haven't ruined anything. You did something brave. Now we figure out how to make it work. Together. Always together." We held each other on that couch for a long time, learning that marriage meant fighting and making up and fighting again, all in the service of building something stronger. The next morning, Victoria and I met with the developer, Andrew Chen, no relation to me, despite the surname. We'd prepared our pitch carefully, presenting the community's demands not as obstacles but as opportunities. 50% affordable housing makes you eligible for federal tax credits, Victoria explained. The right of return policy ensures community support, which speeds up permitting. Local hiring creates goodwill and reduces legal challenges. It also cuts my profit margin by 30%, Andrew said bluntly. "In the short term," I said, "but think long term. This project becomes a model for sustainable, equitable development. You get publicity awards, a reputation as a developer who actually cares. That leads to more projects, better projects. And if it doesn't, then you've still built housing for 500 families," Victoria said. "You've still made a difference. Isn't that worth something?" Andrew was quiet, studying the revised plans we'd prepared. Finally, he said, 25% profit reduction. That's my limit. You find a way to make the numbers work with a 25% cut, and I'm in. Victoria and I exchanged glances. 25% was tight, but manageable. Deal, we said simultaneously. The next 3 weeks were brutal. We worked 18-hour days redesigning systems, negotiating with suppliers, finding efficiencies wherever possible. We brought the entire team in, brainstorming ways to cut costs without cutting quality. It was during one of these marathon sessions, around midnight, that I looked around the conference room at Morrison and Fletcher, Chicago. Victoria was at the whiteboard, explaining a revised mechanical system. James and 2 other architects were reviewing structural modifications. Everyone was exhausted but energized. "We're going to pull this off," I said. Victoria turned from the whiteboard, marker still in hand. "Yes, we are." And somehow, we did. 2 weeks before the final deadline, we submitted a redesigned proposal that met all the community's demands while staying within Andrew's revised budget. The developer approved it. The Community Advisory Board approved it. The city approved it. The Aurora Housing Complex was officially moving forward. The groundbreaking ceremony was held on a crisp October morning. 1 year into our marriage, Victoria and I stood with Andrew, city officials and community leaders holding gold-painted shovels. "This project represents a new model for urban development," the mayor said in her speech. "One that prioritizes people over profits, sustainability over speed, community over commerce." When it was Victoria's turn to speak, she said, "Architecture has the power to change lives." but only if we listen to the people whose lives will be changed. This project exists because a community demanded better, and we listened. Then she looked at me. My colleague and co-lead Maya Chen understood from the beginning that listening wasn't enough. We had to act. Her vision and courage made this possible. It was the first time Victoria had publicly acknowledged my contribution in a way that mattered, not as her protege or her junior partner, but as an equal. When they handed me the microphone, I said, 500 families will live in the buildings we're breaking ground on today. That's not just architecture, that's justice. Thank you to everyone who fought to make this possible. As we turned the first shovels of dirt, I caught Victoria's eye. She smiled, and in that smile I saw everything. Pride, love, partnership. Future 6 months into construction, Victoria came home pale and shaking. What's wrong? I asked immediately. I'm pregnant. This time I knew she wasn't kidding. I helped her to the couch, my mind racing. How? I mean, I know how. But remember that work trip to Austin 2 months ago? The conference. I did remember. Victoria had gone alone while I stayed in Chicago managing site inspections. I met someone at the hotel bar. We talked. We had too much wine and her voice broke. I made a mistake, Maya. A terrible mistake. My world tilted. You slept with someone else. It was one night. One drunken, stupid night. I felt guilty immediately. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. And then I started feeling sick, and I took a test. And you're pregnant with someone else's baby? I'm so sorry. Tears streamed down her face. I love you. Only you. I don't know. I was drunk and lonely and you were here. And I have no excuse, Maya, none. What I did was unforgivable. I stood up, unable to sit still. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I need to go. Please don't leave. I need space to think. Victoria. I can't do this right now. I grabbed my keys and left, ignoring her calls behind me. I drove to Sarah's apartment and broke down as soon as she opened the door. She cheated. I sobbed. She's pregnant. With someone else's baby? Sarah held me while I cried, then made tea and listened while I told her everything. What are you going to do? She asked gently. I don't know. I love her. God, I love her so much. But how do I get past this? Do you want to get past it? I thought about Victoria, about our marriage, about the life we'd built together, about the Aurora housing complex and our partnership and the way she made me laugh and challenged me and loved me. I don't want to lose her, I admitted, but I don't know if I can trust her again. Trust can be rebuilt, Sarah said, but only if you both want to do the work. And only if she's truly sorry. I stayed at Sarah's for 3 days. Victoria texted constantly, apologizing, begging to talk. I finally agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop far from anywhere we usually went. She looked terrible. Eyes red from crying, face pale, hands shaking as she held her cup. I've been thinking, she said, about why I did it. And I think I was scared. Scared of what? Of how perfect things were. How happy I was. Catherine left me because I wasn't enough for her. And with you, everything was so good and I kept waiting for it to fall apart. So I sabotaged it. I destroyed the thing I was most afraid of losing. That's messed up, Victoria. I know. I'm seeing a therapist. I started 3 days ago. I'm going to figure out why I do this, why I hurt the people I love, and the baby. She took a shaky breath. I've been thinking about that too. I don't expect you to raise someone else's child. If you want a divorce, I understand. But Maya, I need you to know, I love you. I want our marriage. And if there's any chance you can forgive me, I'll spend the rest of my life earning back your trust. I stared at my coffee. I need time. Okay. And if we're going to try to make this work, we need couples counseling. Not just you in therapy, but us working on this together. Yes. Whatever you need. And I need you to tell me about the father. I need to know everything. Victoria nodded and told me. His name was David. He was a pharmaceutical researcher from Seattle. They'd exchanged numbers, but he'd never called. She'd deleted his contact. She had no intention of reaching out to him about the pregnancy. I'm going to keep the baby, she said. I understand if that's a deal breaker. I went home that night with more questions than answers for 2 weeks. I lived in our apartment while Victoria stayed at a hotel. We continued working together on the Aurora project, maintaining professionalism despite the personal turmoil. It was during a site visit that I realized what I wanted. We were reviewing foundation work on Building C when one of the construction workers called out, Ms. Chen, Ms. Fletcher, come see this. He'd found something during excavation, old photos, buried in a metal box. They showed the neighborhood as it had been 50 years ago. Families standing in front of modest homes, Children playing in the street, a community. This is why we're doing this, Victoria said quietly, looking at the photos. To give families places to build memories, to create community. I looked at her. At the woman I'd fallen in love with, who'd hurt me deeply but was owning her mistake, who was building something meaningful while facing her own demons. I want to try, I said. She turned to me, hope and fear in her eyes. Try what? To make our marriage work. To forgive you. To raise this baby together, Maya. I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. But Victoria, I love you. And I believe people can change. I believe we can get through this. Are you sure? No, but I'm willing to try. We started couples counseling the next week. It was brutal, digging into trust issues, communication problems, fear of abandonment on both sides. Victoria had to face why she'd sabotaged our marriage. I had to face my own insecurities about being the younger partner, about always wondering if I was enough. It took months. There were setbacks. Times I almost gave up. Times Victoria's pregnancy filled me with resentment instead of joy. But slowly, painfully, we rebuilt. Victoria went into labor during a blizzard in January. The Aurora housing complex was 70% complete, and we'd been doing a site inspection when her water broke. Of course this happens during the worst storm of the year. She panted in the car as I drove, carefully through snow-covered streets. Just breathe. We'll get there, Maya. I'm scared. I know. Me too. At the hospital, I held her hand through contractions, wiped her forehead, coached her breathing. When the doctor said it was time to push, Victoria gripped my hand so hard I thought my bones would break. And then, after hours of labor, a baby's cry filled the room. It's a girl, the doctor announced. They placed her on Victoria's chest, tiny, red-faced, perfect. Victoria looked down at her daughter and burst into tears. Do you want to hold her? Victoria asked me. I hesitated. This was someone else's child. The physical reminder of Victoria's betrayal. But when I looked at that baby, I didn't see betrayal. I saw a new life. I saw possibility. I took her in my arms and something in my chest cracked open. Hi, I whispered. I'm Maya. I'm going to help your mom take care of you. Victoria named her Sophia. The first few weeks were chaos. Neither of us had any idea how to care for a newborn. We took turns with night feedings, changed countless diapers, walked the floor with a screaming baby at 3 a.m. It was exhausting and overwhelming and somehow brought us closer together. Thank you, Victoria said one night after I'd taken over feeding duty so she could sleep. For what? For being here. For choosing us. You didn't have to, and you did anyway. I looked down at Sophia, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger. I'm not going to pretend this is easy, or that I don't still have moments of anger. But I'm here. We're building a family, Victoria. It's going to take time to build it, right? The Aurora housing complex opened on a sunny day in May, when Sophia was 4 months old. The first families moved in to applause and celebration. The buildings looked exactly as we'd envisioned. Modern but warm, sustainable but beautiful, practical but inspiring. Victoria and I did the final walkthrough together. Sophia strapped my chest in a carrier. We did it, Victoria said. Looking at the community garden where children were already playing, we did. Thank you for not giving up. On this project, on us, I almost did. Multiple times, but you didn't. We watched as families explored their new homes. And I thought about all the construction that had happened over the past 2 years. Not just of buildings, but of our relationship. We'd torn down walls, rebuilt foundations, reinforced structures that had been weak. Were we perfect? No. Did I still have moments of hurt and doubt? Yes, but we were stronger than we'd been before. We'd survived a crisis that would have destroyed most marriages. And we'd come through it together. Sophia made a small sound against my chest, and I kissed the top of her head. She wasn't mine biologically, but she was mine in every way that mattered. Sophia was 6 months old. When the call came, Victoria's face went white as she looked at her phone. It's him, David, the father. How did he get your number? I don't know. I deleted his contact, but he obviously kept mine. She answered on speaker so I could hear. Victoria, it's David Park, from Austin. Hello, David. I wasn't going to call, but I've been thinking about that night, and I realized, did we use protection? Victoria's eyes met mine. No, we didn't. I was afraid you'd say that. Look, I got tested recently for something unrelated. And is there any chance you could be pregnant? Because I think you should know that I'm a carrier for a genetic condition. It's rare, but if you had a child, there's a possibility I had a baby, Victoria interrupted. A daughter. 6 months ago? Silence on the other end. Then, a daughter. From that night? Yes, I have a daughter. His voice cracked. I have a daughter and you didn't tell me? I didn't think you'd want to know. It was one night, we barely knew each other. She's my child. I had a right to know. Victoria's hands were shaking. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have found a way to contact you. I want to meet her. Meet my daughter. After she hung up, Victoria turned to me, panic in her eyes. What do we do? 2 weeks later, David flew to Chicago. We met at our apartment neutral territory where Sophia would be comfortable. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with kind eyes and nervous hands. He brought a stuffed elephant. For Sophia, he said, if that's okay. It's fine, Victoria said. We sat in the living room, awkward and tense. Sophia was in her bouncer, making happy baby sounds, oblivious to the emotional minefield around her. She's beautiful, David said, his eyes fixed on her. She has my nose. He was right. I'd never noticed before, but Sophia's small nose was shaped like his. Can I hold her? He asked. Victoria looked at me. I nodded. Even though my stomach was churning, David picked up Sophia with surprising confidence. She looked at him with wide eyes, then smiled. Hi, sweetheart, he whispered. I'm your dad. The words hit me like a physical blow. Your dad. Not, I'm David, or I'm a friend of your mom's. Your dad. I want to be part of her life, David said, still holding Sophia. I know this is complicated. I know you two are married and building a life together, but she's my daughter. I can't just walk away. What exactly are you asking for? I said, speaking for the first time. He looked at me. Visitation. Maybe every other weekend once she's older. Video calls in the meantime. Her knowing who I am. Being part of her life as she grows up. She already has parents, I said. Victoria and me. And she can have 3. Maya is Maya, right? I'm not trying to replace you or disrupt your family, but I'm her biological father. I have rights. Rights you didn't care about until 6 months after she was born, because I didn't know she existed. Victoria stood up. Stop, both of you. David, you're right that you should have been told. That's on me. And yes, you have a right to know your daughter. But you need to understand something. Maya has been here since day one. She does midnight feedings. She changes diapers. She sings Sophia to sleep. She's her parent in every way that matters. I'm not trying to diminish that, David said, but I'm here now, and I want to be a father to my daughter. The next few months were a legal nightmare. David hired a lawyer and filed for joint custody. We hired our own lawyer and fought back. He has a strong case, our attorney Rebecca told us. As the biological father, he has parental rights. The fact that he wasn't informed of the pregnancy works in his favor. He can argue he would have been involved from the start if he'd known. What about Maya? Victoria asked. She's been raising Sophia as her own. Maya has no legal relationship to Sophia unless you two do a second parent adoption. And even then, David's biological rights would supersede hers in most custody situations. I felt like I was going to be sick. So what do? You negotiate. Find an arrangement everyone can live with. Because if this goes to court, it will be expensive, brutal, and the outcome is uncertain. We spent weeks in mediation.